Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly and I'm a mixed media artist who specializes in gouache paint, ink, and sometimes I do digital art. In this week's video, I'm going to be showing you the process on how I did the floral border in ink for this possum painting. Before I do any ink drawing, I just get a piece of printer paper and I make a bunch of quick lines with my ballpoint pen on this piece of paper. I do this to avoid any ink splotches because the worst thing ever is when you get a perfect smooth gradient with ballpoint ink and then a random ball of ink just ruins all your hard work with a giant splotch. It's just take the extra precaution, it's worth it. These flowers that I'm drawing are iris flowers, and as a general rule of thumb when I draw with ballpoint ink is I always follow the contours of whatever I am drawing. As you can see, the iris petals are very ruffly, and there's a lot of shadows and highlights along those ruffles along the edges of the petals. What I do is I first roughly outlined the shape of each petal very lightly. That's the thing I like about ballpoint ink is you can create a very faint light line. Also helps with gradual shading. And I normally start wherever it's going to be super dark. So let's say the center of a dip between one of the ruffles on the edge of the petal. And I start my line there very hard, and as I flick the line upwards to create a shadow and a series of lines to shade, I make the line lighter. And I keep doing that around the whole surface of the iris flower. Each line that I create for shading follows the contours of the area that I am shading. So I will make it go in the direction of how the petal is curving. This just makes it look a lot more organic and realistic, whereas if you just use straight lines with cross-hatching to shade, there's nothing wrong with that, but it gives a very different look, one that I'm not really going for. It tends to flatten whatever you're drawing. It's not exactly what we're going for. I'm going for more of a detailed, smooth gradient with ballpoint ink, and this is how I do it. I also just wanted to note that I'm using a separate pen to outline the flowers, and I'm just doing that purely because I like how it looks. I think it makes the eye have an easier time defining what each thing you're looking at is. It makes it so that there's some more separation between the petals and the leaves. It just makes everything pop out more. I like it. I like contrast in artwork a lot. The ballpoint ink pen that I'm using for shading, it's a lot more dry. It's like your typical ballpoint pen. The pen that I'm using for outline work, it has a lot more of an inky consistency, almost that of a fountain pen, not as inky, but it's a lot more wet and it releases a lot more ink at once and is a little bit darker. Just a quick side note, something I did in art school that really helped me with my cross-hatching was, this was actually a whole assignment that we had to do. We had to draw a bunch of lines, and that was it. It was just a bunch of lines, as many as you could do on, I think it was 3 pieces of paper in your sketchbook. And basically the assignment and the goal was to do a bunch of series of lines as fast as possible and making them all parallel to each other. And basically that was to get your hand used to doing that quickly and creating smooth shading, like fast. And all the lines had to be in the same direction. Not the whole page. The whole page didn't have to be all the lines perfect in the same direction, but just clusters of shading lines where you basically just go line, like a bunch of lines, and then you're like, okay, damn, my hand hurts. And then you do another cluster of lines, and it was just a bunch of practice doing that. And to be honest, I think if you tell people like, yeah, I had to do this for homework, they'd be like, what? But it makes sense because basically what it's training you to do is to basically synchronize your hand coordination with your eyes and making it so that you're going in the direction you're intending to go, and to do so quickly and effectively. Alright, so here's the part where I started doing the little bumblebees. My goal for the bumblebees was to have them half gouache, half ink. So I have this weird idea between why I have ink and gouache coming together. I want the ink to be like a separate world from the gouache, almost like they're two different dimensions. And my goal was to have the little critters like the bumblebees, or if you saw my raccoon painting, in that case it was the butterfly. I wanted those animals or insects to meld the two realms together. So I didn't really get too focused or obsessed over detail. What I basically did was paint yellow for the little fuzzies on the bumblebees and also some blue on the wings. I went in with the ink to give some texture to the fuzzy areas, as well as some white highlights for the wings. Then there's the final touch, the pan pastel. Now I use pan pastel specifically in this orangey yellow color with a Q-tip, and I'm spreading that over the third eye because I want the third eye to radiate a warm light around the possum. I want the third eye to be popping, shining. The possum's woke. Darla is woke. By the way, I named the possum Darla. Pan pastels are basically a compact version of chalk pastels. You can brush them on with sponges, and I love them on gouache because they stick great on the gritty nature of gouache, and you can erase it. So that's what I did, was erase some areas and went back in with some highlights around the fur. And that's the finale of Darla the Possum. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!